So we are back, and I am not alone. I am the one and only Stefan Jawinski with me. If you're new to the show, like by now, if you're not new, you should know it by now. Every season, what we do, we take a look at the data, we analyze it, we publish a blog that can be found on our website, and Stefan comes on the show to talk about the state of the balance in the game because we know it's a very important topic for everybody, right?
Yes. So
It's not the most important topic.
it's one of them. So that's cool.
So Steph, let us know what are the latest findings and where are we going with the balance?
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about how do we get here? What is the state of balance exactly? Season just ended, right? We had year 3, season 1. Got it. Vor Tiger season. Perfect. So everyone wants to see like what happened. What are the win rates? What are the pick rates?
Yeah.
What we do is we try to break down a few different sets of data. We look at internal stuff, we look at external stuff, and we try to end up with some interesting stuff to share to you. And we use it as a big opportunity for a conversation.
Yeah.
Here's where data shows us, here's where some of you guys think we are, here's where some of us think we are. And I think we do it as a two-parter now on the Warriors Den, right? We come back for Q&A
Exactly.
next week. So this week will be data dump week. Next week will be the back and forth.
Then you can fire your questions and fire. You can ask nicely. That works as well. Works even better.
Fireworks. Fireworks. We had a lot
nicely.
of fire metaphors yesterday with a few people, so that was fun.
Yeah. So let's dive right in.
Let's. I just want to set the stage. I'm super sorry.
Let's wait before we dive. Let's check the water if it's full.
With more preamble first.
Okay.
I want to talk about what is the data and what is it used for and what is it not used for.
Okay.
So what do we look at even at all for balance, right? We look at a variety of sources. So high-level player data from console and PC, casual player data, console and PC, user research studies, community feedback collected across Reddit, YouTube, Twitch, blah, 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 everything. Feedback from top players, tournament streams and results, and our dev team's internal findings and so on. Each one has different pros and cons. Yep. Certain things are used very well for, what is a frustration, and other things are used much more ruthlessly for like, what is the actual balance at this kind of level of play? And it's a give and take to figure out which parts are important for what problems.
So you look at a lot of different things. So that's important to know. It's not only our own data, it's a wide range of things and then it's your role with the team to digest everything.
Exactly. By the end of the day, enough people have come to my desk and yelled at me about one character or another. So I hear.
And that's true. Like, just want everybody to know, like, yes, we do read your feedback, and I can promise you that people on the team, they also have feedback.
So, and they also have your feedback. So
yeah, and
I hear it twice.
And Stefan is the recipient of all that feedback.
Yes, it's a grind, but it's fun. Okay, so what are we going to show right now based on all that? We're going to show data from full population.
Yep.
We're going to show data from the top 4% when it comes to Dominion and Breach. We're going to show data from Platinum and above players when it comes to Duel. And we're also going to show you what was the currently community tier list. So that's a variety of sources. When it comes to the full population and the top 4% and Platinum and above players, the rules are, for the data we're about to show you, is games must be played during any point of the season. They're combined PC and console player populations. Reputation 1 and above players only. All players in the match must be in the same MMR bracket, so it can't be Luke versus me, for example, right? It's got to be a fair match. I didn't say which way, right?
What is he talking about? I was told before the show not to downgrade myself.
Really? I'm sorry, I didn't get that note.
That's okay. Everybody knows that I am not a good player.
I'll get beat up after.
I never pretend to be.
Are you in the tournament?
Are you out of your mind?
No? Okay. Fine.
Usually when we do internal tournaments, because we have an internal tournament tomorrow for the team. And when we do, usually I'm like hosting, I'm casting, I'm doing other stuff than playing. Anyway, I never go very, very far, so.
That's okay. It's just for fun, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so anyway, where were we? I guess basically that's enough preamble, probably. Right? We've shown
Where
you data.
you were the stage where you just finished me, you just executed me.
Well, I guess you're going to be on mic tomorrow, so you'll make fun of me whenever I make a mistake.
Exactly. I have this mic. Once you're
It's
gone,
revenge. It's revenge.
once you're gone, I'm still here. Don't forget about that.
I will never forget that. So don't worry. Okay, so let's get to the data. We'll start with Duel. We'll work our way across to Dominion and Breach. So first up, this is the Duel
Look
data.
at this chart.
Year 3, Season 1, so the one that just completed a week ago. And this is full population. We can see
And
that
right now, we just took your face out of the screen so people can
probably for
see
the best.
everything.
Yes. Oh, yeah, and for that too. We can see, let's recall, Blackprior, Shugoki.
Maybe just for everybody to understand, explain like the 54 we see with Shugoki and Jiangjun, the top one. What does that mean?
Okay, so Shugoki beat Jiangjun in the full population 54% of the time.
Okay, so that's what it means. So everybody understand. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And then you see at the extreme right, the overall rate, so the average of all these. The higher the value, the more often you are winning when picking these 0, basically. To put in your mind, Blackprior was introduced in this season.
Yeah.
Shugoki, Warlord, and PK got significant improvements through that season. We can see Shugoki is rocketed to the top. Jiangjun was already at the top in the previous season and is still at the top of full population. Blackprior's entered very near the top of this data set as well. And we see Warlord is fairly high, which is interesting because before Warlord was very low in the full population set of data. And the big balance change for Warlord characters before that point was basically strongly nerfing the out of lock stuff while trying to buff the in lock stuff.
Okay.
And that seems to have had a good effect on full population players. And we'll see a little later on that it's obviously reduced its efficiency in top level play.
Okay.
As we kind of go down the list, we see
Max, maybe you can take this out. Thank you.
we see towards the top, Kensei, Orochi, Valkyrie might be a bit surprising to a lot of people at full population. Just keep in mind that this is everybody playing reputation 1 and above, so maybe they don't quite know all the ins and outs of the play as we go. At the bottom, yes, Peacekeeper still didn't raise as we were hoping a little bit in the full population data, but that's kind of where we are. Some surprising characters at the bottom are still Conqueror and so on, but that was also the case in the previous season at full population data.
Okay.
So that's the shape of it right now.
Anything surprising for you in there, or it was you expected?
It's fairly similar to the previous seasons for me, so I still see characters like Kensei, Orochi, Valkyrie, Aramusha being higher than maybe they should be. But at the same time, when you look at Shugoki, Jiangjun, Kensei, Blackprior, heavy, strong hits that do good damage, reasonable access to unblockables. And then as you go down, like Kensei, Orochi, Valkyrie have 500 attacks and dodge attacks that are messing people up in the full population. So that seems to speak to what is the big difficulty that full population players have. Big, heavy damage from unblockables and reasonably quick attacks. That just seems to melt people more than some of the people who end up at the bottom, like Conqueror, who is a bit more defensive and then bash-oriented for small damage, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick look at Platinum and above players. So this includes Platinum, Diamond, Master, and Grandmaster. We can see that the overall rate is a little reduced. The highest to the lowest are a bit tighter. Just go back real quick. We saw it
PK
goes
rise from
higher
the
to
last
the lower.
38 to 46% overall rate.
Yeah,
That's good. Is it good?
that seems good.
Yeah, seems
Nice.
good to me.
Jiangjun is still very high. Shugoki, Blackprior, all still very high. Then we start to see the rest of the Wulin, Conqueror.
Anusha is very high as well.
Yep, the whole group ends up there. Conqueror is there, which is a bit more closer to where we would expect Conquerors. Berserkers are still a bit lower than you might expect, but it's starting to get a bit more in line, I think, with expectations at a high level of play. Yeah, I would say so. Generally, that makes sense. Gets a little dicey as we go down the list, but I think that's okay. So now that we've shown you this, let's take a look also to contrast this against the community-created tier list. The last version of this that was posted was March 23rd during the Vortiger season. So we'll use that set here. It's super pretty. I don't know, someone internally, I guess, spent some time to make it look awesome, but it's a copy and paste of the tier list that you could have seen on Competitive For Honor. So this was created by Setmix and a variety of the top level tournament players, and this is their last look at what it was. We like to use this to contrast full population versus platinum and above versus top level tournament play.
Okay.
Here we see a bit of a difference.
Can I ask you a dumb question?
No dumb questions.
When we see, because maybe other people are asking, because when on the previous slides, we had the old bunch, Chende, Nusha, that were quite up, Shaolin.
Yep.
And now they're in strong but with flaws. They're like, they don't match the win rate that we saw in the previous slide. Is that normal?
I think there's some normalcy with this across games and across this game. So a number of characters you can see in Platinum above start to resemble more closely this, right? Like you talked about the Wulin. Here you can see the Wulin are B or above, so kind of close to where Platinum and above data set has it.
Okay.
But you can look at some extreme outliers, like Shugoki was #1 with a bullet in full population and in Platinum Plus. And here, not viable. Aramusha, same deal, was much higher in full population and in platinum and above, and here is in the basement. Some of the big differences are that the top level tournament players really analyze and understand and bring out the particularities of the system, of the fight system. So the example here for Shugoki and Aramusha is you can see the finishers and you just back dodge it and roll if necessary, depending on the character matchup and so on. And this neuters their offense entirely.
Okay.
Whereas full population players aren't quite aware of those kind of extreme free escapes that they could do, and so end up attempting to deal with, is it unblockable heavy, is it feint guard break, is it Shugoki hug, or in Aramusha's case, the deadly feint options or the heavy finishers. And because of that, full population players are playing a very difficult game of what is my opponent going to do. They're in the mind space, more or less, and because they're going to be wrong a certain amount of times, and the person on offense is going to be right a certain amount of times, they're going to eat damage that top-level tournament players have zero chance of eating, basically.
Okay.
They just recognize it and they go, no, free escape, can't deal with it.
Oh, thank you.
No problem at all. I mean, for us, we'll get to it a bit later on, but the freedom of escaping in duels is, I think, one of the biggest problems in the game today. Exactly. And what really, in my mind, makes full population and community created tier list and tournament level play so different. And the more we could unify that by neutering some of the escapes and so on, we would end up making all players play the same, can I condition my opponent to deal with my attacks incorrectly? And as a defender, can I make the correct read and deal with it correctly and avoid damage, rather than 0% versus 100%, that kind of thing. So I think that's why we end up with Shugoki Aramusha in the basement here. Other than that, yeah, there's some things are the same. Like Blackbriar has reasonably good offense and quite good defense, and that's represented in both levels of play. Berserker we start to see coming up here as well. Shinobi's another example of being, I think, in a different spot across community and full population, but I think we'll see that a bit more in Dominion, so we'll maybe talk about that a bit later on.
Cool.
Anything else we want to really hit on the dual side of things?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
You're serious? You're asking me?
Yeah, no, why not?
Anything else you want to hit, Stefan, on the duel?
I think there's a few interesting pieces on like Raider Lawbringer, for example, right? We just gave them improvements as well.
Correct.
in year 3, season 2.
Yeah.
So why are they getting buffs if they're there in A for the community tournament list, basically? And versus if we go back just a moment, we'll see that like Lawbringer is kind of in the middle-ish, Raiders right in the middle in full pop, and then Scatter a little bit. They get a bit lower here, but are not so extreme as compared to some other cases, some other characters. But we know very well that Shove on Block was really shutting down the rest of the options for a lot of characters. So that's why. Couldn't generate or sustain offense, so we tried to buff that across the character. Does Lawbringer suffer from the same my unblockable finisher is dodgeable, rollable? Yes, as Shugoki and Eramusha. This is the same problem in the system. Right now, we don't want to give, crazy dodge chasers to try to like shore up that part of the thing. We'd rather deal with the system globally, because then regular heavy finishers or chained heavy attacks for the whole cast would be better off, for example.
And before moving on to the next section, just where do you think the Itokiri will be next season? Do you have a projection?
Full population, top 5, let's say. It's got a lot of the same things that you see on Shugoki, which is at the top, and or Jiangjun. It's got uninterruptible stance, aka super armor, aka hyper armor, aka this weird For Honor armor that beats everything except for bashes, in which case, call it whatever you want to call it. Unblockable heavies, good damage, reasonably long chains and mix-ups that it can get into. Tier 4 Feet of Doom that seems to be murdering everybody right now. So I would say yes, in duels, quite at the top. And we'll see Hitokiri in Dominion somewhere in the upper half as well, I think.
Cool. We'll revisit that in the state of the balance for the next season.
Yes, and we'll see how wrong I was.
I'm sure you're not. Okay, next thing.
Dominion.
Dominion.
All right, get your magnifying glasses out. Can we see this, do we think? Or do we really need to zoom? Yes, no, maybe. We're okay? Okay, we're okay. Cool. Okay, so overall win rate is on the left, so that's full population on the extreme left, and top 4% right beside it on the left. Pick rate is represented on the right side of the screen with full population first, and then top 4% as well. So here we can see from top, let's pick the top 3, 4. Let's take the top 4 on hero win rate for full population and for top 4%. We see them as Jiangjun, Eramusha, Kensei, and Raider. There's a bit of a swap between top 4% and overall where Eramusha and Jiangjun swap spots, but it's pretty close in both cases. This is, I can totally understand Jiangjun. It makes total sense, right? Super strong attacks, high damage, some armor, some unblockables, really good group fight potential, right? You can really like swap target and throw your attack through. Yeah. You're also reasonably safe with your Sifu's poise. So that makes total sense. Kensei, almost the same thing, reasonably high damage, target swapping attacks, able to be useful in group fights. Raider, same deal, with Raider's Fury, as well as ability to stampeding charge into people. Eramusha is maybe where some people will probably be like, what is going on there? Same thing happened last season, if you may recall. Jiangjun and Eramusha were top 2. And here we're saying it doesn't seem to matter, full population or top 4%, Eramusha ends up right at the top. And I think that's another case of, against full population and top 4%, don't quite deal with a deadly feint in the same way, and 500 is enough to kill, for 500 MS attacks are enough to kill this kind of level of player. As we go down, they're mostly pretty tight together. There's nothing too, like no one's way above or way below.
No, they're like Nushia and Nobushi, like 0.7% and 0.5, 0.5, 0.6. So they're pretty much all pack in the same group.
Exactly. So it's a reasonably good gradient all the way down. We do see assassins a bit too low here. I think, part of that is a reflex guard and so on. We also saw that with the 1v1s no longer giving revenge gain, we're kind of wondering, like, hey, is this really going to shuffle the list massively, or is it not going to make too much difference? And it seems it's not made too much difference here in terms of win rate. I would like to, I think, show the community-created tier list as well here so we can contrast a little bit.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Okay, here we are. So there's some similarities and some difference. The biggest one, again, being similar. Zhang Zheng is number one in both cases. For population, Platinum Plus, top 4% and above. And here. Whereas Aramusha is number one for full population and for platinum top 4%, but here is last again.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same kind of thing in that the top level players are able to deal with the 500 MS attacks, are able to back dodge the deadly feint. Aramusha doesn't have fantastic group fighting potential in that the trajectories are not very high, so he can't arc and attack through people. His range isn't very good. He's fairly slow. His feats are okay, but not game breaking or anything like that, which is what they're looking for. Whereas what we see at the very top, Zhang Jun and Nobushi have the ability to target swap everything. Are really good group fighters, have high survivability, and can really make a big difference in any kind of group fight. And Shinobi is a force on the field, where Shinobi can do long-range grabs, really mess you up that way, can be off camera a lot of the times, and still influence the fight that you are in.
He likes to be behind the scene.
Certain things go through revenge activation, which is super annoying, but that's why those three characters are super strong, at least in the community tournament level.
Anything else to say about Dominion, or we can move on to Breach, I believe. Next one is.
I think we can take a look at Breach. Yeah, let's pull that up.
Is there anything else to mention on Dominion before we move on? Are we good?
I think we're good.
We're good? Perfect. Let's move on to Breach then.
Perfect. Okay, Breach. Same thing here. Win rates on the left, full population is first, and then top 4% is the second column, and then pick rate is on the right. Let's look at win rate first. We've got a similarity in that Zhang Kensei, and Aramusha at the very top of a full population, and rate is quite high as well. So it's very similar to Dominion win rates. So that's cool, that's interesting. Top 4% starts to shift a little bit in that you see Nusha suddenly make a break into the top, whereas Aramusha, Zhang Raider all still show up, and then Kensei does drop a little bit. We see Black Prior entering at the top 4% level there, which is kind of neat. Assassins definitely have a problem here as well at full population and top 4%, except for Nusha and Berserker at full population. They all end up quite low. Gladiator's got a very short reflex guard, so I think that's a big part of why Gladiator's low. Gladiator, when he or she first was launched, seemed very strong with the zone attack and the toe stab, especially in Dominions and group fight contexts. But I think as people have gotten better over time, 600 lights in the chain aren't cutting it at all, and is a bit predictable when it comes to what the attack's going to be.
Also, why it's tougher for the assassin, if I'm not mistaken, is because of the pikeman.
Yeah, I think so. I think for sure in Breach, right? Like you always have to be helping your ram move or trying to stop the ram from moving. Side lane is full of pikemen as well, and if you're getting high damage and you have to constantly block and your reflex guard is not helping you, you're going to get chipped away.
So if you pick an assassin in Breach, you're better off going on the lane and trying to do some duels and not go in the middle of the pack with a pikeman.
I think so. I mean, I think you have to be a role player to be an assassin in Breach for sure, rather than the one who's messing up the ram fight, for example.
So I would never take an assassin.
Well, Nusha seems to be doing quite well. I think
Yeah.
Caltrops is a big part of why that is the case, because you can drop that in front of the pikemen, and that really wrecks them quite interestingly. But I think we're just gonna hit that when it comes to win rate for Breach. Let's talk overall about pick rate.
Yep.
We can show just real quick. We'll show the Dominion or the Duel one as well. So this is pick rate for Duel. I'll let you guys screenshot that. 3, 2, 1. Ah, perfect. All right, I'm gonna go back to Breach or Dominion, which are all fairly similar.
Oh, yeah, new shot. Like I was looking, new shot 1.1% and the pick rate for the top 4%.
Yeah, she's low, that's for sure, as well as full population.
Yeah.
I think part of that is like she's a bit of a weird character, right? Like
Be
her-
nice, Anusha. She's not nothing to you.
I like her. I mean, the traps are a bit different, whereas everyone else gets the unblockables. So if your unblockable hits, you're always happy. Whereas this one, there's some very distinct rules as to when is it good. Her range is mostly quite short, and it seems to be a case of like either you can burst on a guy and nuke his whole life bar, or you're gonna have a very difficult time getting in at all. So it's feast or famine with Nusha, and so I can understand why that's a bit of a low pick rate, especially right now where unless you're really buffering your attacks, the trap is going to end up 400 ms reaction time for the opponent, which should be doable for most people. And if you are buffering it, you're still looking at a 333 or 300 reaction time, which is going to be doable for top 4%.
Yep.
Overall, though, when it comes to the very top of the list, we always see the same
Do
people.
we still look at Dominion now, or we are more in Breach? No, we're looking at the Dominion.
We could look at either as you like.
Okay.
Warden we always see at the top. Orochi we always see at the top. Kensei we always see at the top. Centurion we always see at the top. And then it starts to
It's funny when I see Warden and Orochi at the top like that, because those were the first two characters, fighters that people had a chance to play in our the first alpha was only Warden, and then back in 2015, I think. Yeah, 2015, October 2015. So that's a long time ago. And right the year after, we came back another alpha. It was the Warden and the Orochi.
I think that's what the 2015 E3 was all Wardens versus all Orochis, something
Yeah,
like
but there was also, yes, but there was also a Warlord. If you pay
Ah.
attention to the demo on stage, our friend Galek was playing the Warlord. He was jumping up and down in the back to be noticed.
that. Interesting.
Yes.
Easter eggs even.
Yeah, but
back then.
that's exactly why we did it. And people saw it. But the duel between Roman and Leroy, who were doing the big duel at the end, was Warden against Orochi. So it's so to see them like on the top of the pack in terms of pick, maybe it's because people are still in love with those very early characters.
I think that's a big part of it. And I think it's also like they really hit the fantasy
Yeah.
of
Well, that's why we started with them.
it makes total sense, right? When you think of a knight, you think of the warden. When you
Yeah.
think of a samurai, you think of the
Yeah.
Orochi. And I think that ends up resonating very well
Yeah.
with most players. I think that's why no matter what, regardless of power level, regardless of win rate in full population, Platinum Plus, top 4%, or on the community tier list, we always see Warden and Orochi dancing around the
Yeah.
top 2, top 3. Kensei always is up there as well, I think for a similar reason. Once Centurion was released, Centurion appeared there as well. It's interesting to see that the Black Prior has entered at the very top there. And while you expect a good...
I'm not surprised.
You're not surprised?
No, because it was the first knight character released in a very long time.
That's true.
And that's the analysis we made when we saw the huge positive reception the Black Prior had when we announced it back in January. It was like the two heroes that we launched in year one, the Gladiator and
The Centurion?
Centurion. They were less in the Knight Fantasy. So Black Prior was the first in like 2 years real knight that we're launching. So that's why I'm not surprised. It is the fantasy, like with the big shield and
Sword and shield.
Sword and shield.
Yeah. Super cool. But yeah,
That's my
definitely-
analysis.
That's your analysis?
Based on absolutely nothing.
I'm very curious to see if it'll stick and stay there and be one of the new top 3, or we'll just slide a little bit, or will it slowly slide down over time when it's no longer the new new kid on the block.
Because the new kids on the block, that will come later this year. They're cool.
Yeah, we'll see where Hitakuri ends up here as
Yes,
well.
and the other two as well. Cannot say more.
Cannot say more. Beyond that, we don't really see much of a connection between viability and pick rate. Nusha was number one, we saw in the top 4% of breach win rate, but still ends up at the bottom of pick rate. So, theories on there.
Because those who pick her, they win. That's why she's high in win.
At top four, yeah, they seem to be doing quite well.
They mastered.
So maybe the 1.8% that pick her are the best players in the game right now.
That could be it.
Beyond that,
yeah, anything else on that part?
I think we're good on the data. So I think everyone's seen each.
Oh yeah, you had time to screenshot it multiple times.
Yes, exactly. And the blog goes up soon.
Yeah, exactly. It's not up yet? It's up today?
Don't know. We'll find out.
Not yet. Soon. Soon. Oh, yeah.
Soon.
I have to remind people that the state of the balance will be on it's funny because I didn't see the note before.
Me
neither. The state of the balance will be up very, very soon, and you can see all the data. So next steps. Are we ready to do the next steps?